Luka Hocevar, welcome to the Biohacking Secrets Show.
What is going on, man? It's my pleasure to be on here.
I'm
biohacking as we speak, drinking this coffee and getting caffeinated, so that this will be at the highest level possible.
Excellent. I had a little bit of black espresso before my workout. I wanted to do another one, but then I ran the risk of getting weird and overly amped up.
Man, please do it. Let's go.
Yeah, but you might finish like 70% of your sentences. I'm like jumping in there all geeked out on caffeine. And we're here for you. Everyone's here for you. I'm pretty excited because you are part of a small group of coaches that I look up to. Strength and conditioning guys. It's you, it's Jay Ferrugia, Trevor Whitman, if you put him in there. Naughty Aguilar of functional patterns, like a very small group of guys who I feel really know their stuff at all aspects of the game and all the different dimensions. So I'm pumped for us to have a conversation today that kind of goes deep wherever this thing's going to go.
Oh yeah.
But for our listeners who might not be as familiar with your work, maybe you could give us a little bit of your origin story and your background.
Well, I'll try to. I've been better at wrapping it up faster because this can get deep as can be. But I'll I come from Slovenia, which when I was born it was still Yugoslavia actually. But moved around a lot. Moved to England, London. Didn't really know we were moving. I thought we were going on vacation. My dad drops me off at school. I speak no English, and he's like, "Hey, I'll pick you up at 3:30." I guess that's one way to adapt, right? And lived there for 4 years. Then we came back. There was just a lot of economical stuff going on. Obviously, the war started. So he stayed in England. We came back right when the war started. And Yugoslavia broke apart, and you had the Balkan War there from 91 to 97. And then my teenage years were basically a roller coaster of basketball was it for me. That was my life. But I also got really into a lot of bad stuff. By the time I was 12, 13, like organized crime, and somewhere or another started selling dope when I was 15. So I had this weird I go to school when I feel like it. I play a lot of basketball. I'm out in the streets, but I did start. So the big thing for me was that my mom, she worked at the bank. And when I was 14, she opened up a gym with her friend. So she'd basically work up the bank in the morning. Her friend would run the gym in the morning. And then my mom would come and run the gym in the evening. The second part was this small, it was a membership gym, but it was, 1,500 square feet. But I had to call all the cool stuff. And I was a scrawny kid, and not tall. I mean, like I'm, even now when I tell people I used to play pro basketball, they kind of give me the double, up and down. I'm 6 foot. That's not like necessarily up there. But, I had to, I started lifting weights because I was like, all right, like, I read about it. That helps you get faster and jump higher and this, that, and the other. I was already reading stuff, back then when I was 12 and 13, figuring out performance stuff. And I kind of, I fell in love with it. I was really fortunate because, one of the top powerlifters in the country was training at my mom's gym. And at the bottom, because in Slovenia, you'd have these physical physical education buildings. And it was sponsored by the government. And so it was in this building. And at the bottom was this little like basically a shithole of a gymnastics gym. But in there were two guys that were at that point in time, and for many years, actually, like pretty much top 2-3 in the world for like, a period of 6, 7, 8 years, world champions, gold medalists. One's name was Aljaž Pegan. He was the, on a straddle, basically was at that point in time for years, the world champion. And, they'd come up to mostly they train obviously down in gymnastics, little gym, but they'd come up and also train there. And, so now I got these, like, I didn't even know how fortunate I was, but they're showing me stuff, teaching me
amazing
stuff. The power lifter, taught me how to bench and squat and deadlift. And these guys are showing me all types of, tension techniques and body weight stuff. And, which, I was really engaged with it. But the thing that kind of, I think even spurred this why am I now a coach? I think it started there, training helped me build confidence. I was not confident. I was always the last kid, picked to play. I was the youngest of the brothers, like all, I can go on and on and on. I had some other traumas there, but the weight room helped me build strength, not just physically, but also mentally, and then you'd see it on the court. I'm now I turned 14, I turned 15. I'm bumping people and they just can't physically guard me. I'm like, wow, I'm faster. Oh, I can touch the rim. So now you connect these two. And of course, it's a feedback loop. The gym helps me improve performance. Then I'd get even more into reading shit, plyometrics, overspeed training, yada, yada, all of that. And what's funny is that my basketball coach, Boris, his friend was, when I say this name, don't even try to repeat it because it's not going to happen. Srđan Đorđević. But it's like, still is kind of like, one of the top track and field guys in that part of Europe. He actually trained also Marilyn Adi for the last 6 years of her career. And Brigitte Bukovic was in 92. She was the silver medalist on 110-meter hurdles. So he was the coach, and I kept bugging. I was like, hey, look, like I want to jump higher, I want to run faster. And so Boris goes and asks, this guy, he's like, look, I got a kid, he's a nutcase, wants to train. So, Srđan goes, all right, we'll tell him to come before school in the mornings, to train with us, thinking there's no way I'm going to show up. Yeah. Of course, my ass shows up, and for at the beginning, he was annoyed, It was because he told Boris, like, yeah, let him come.
Talk about your all-time backfires.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, he was like, because I was asking questions, I was just very, very into it, and he was annoyed at first, but he actually started realizing that like I'm very, very dedicated, and but man, like, so I'm like 16, 17, and I'm in the mornings before school, 2 to 3 days a week, I'm training with Olympic medalists from the Olympics, like Brigitte Bukovic is teaching me how to do foot fire,
unbelievable,
and stuff like that, and that's when the first year I dunked, of course. So now all of these things are kind of correlating. At the same time, I say this story because I think it's important to, even for me, one of the books that I love is called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And the reason I love that book, when I read it, I was like, oh, this makes sense, because it's not like when I picked up a basketball, I just loved basketball. I wasn't good, and I wasn't picked, and people would make fun of me, and it made me pissed off, and it's like the pissed off made me work. And then the better I got, the more I loved it, and this is how life works. This passion hypothesis isn't necessarily really true. So the more you practice something, the better you get at it. The more you deliberately practice it, the more passionate you become about stuff. Right. So that was, and I say that about not only basketball and training, but it's like, I think this is where, for me, the love of coaching began. And I didn't even, know it, because if you asked me at that point in time, the only thing I could tell you is like, I'm going to be pro ball player. That's it. And so, in those, like I said, years, there was a very crazy roller coaster, because I had to train for hours and hours a day. I'd go to school, but I also wasn't in school a lot. I kind of gamed the system. I had to kind of repeat summers and all that stuff. But I was doing a lot of stupid stuff, and then I actually escalated in those years, 16, 17, and then 18. And when I was 17, our Slovenian team, one of the things we did is we went to the U.S. We went to this thing called Eastern Invitational Basketball Academy, which is kind of like the number one high school. It's in Trenton, New Jersey, and it was meant to be an experience for us, right? Like, hey, play with the American players. See how you stack up in the competition. It's going to be great for the team, which it was. It was a great experience for us all.
What year was this?
So this is 99, 98, 99.
So we're like riding high after the dream team and all that stuff. And
yes.
You guys had to be so fired up to come to the U.S.
Oh, it was. I mean, and of course, like, you look at, I'm waking up, I was obviously a big Jordan Chicago Bulls fan. And I would be waking up, you had to wake up at 3 a.m., 3:30 to watch the games, when you were in Slovenia. Man, we wake up, we watch the games, it was nothing. You'd go in the morning to practice, all fired up. So just, going to the U.S. was like this, certainly a great experience. But I had at the moment that we went there, I never thought about like, all right, I'm going to go to college here, because I was actually already playing kind of D2 ball, getting paid under the table. I was making money in the streets. It was like one of those things where that was not on my mind, and then we got there. I did really well. And a guy that, cause you get assigned to, basically you play some games, you get assigned to teams, and then the whole week you play, right? It's like, it's a league, and then you have every day. I mean, it's hours and hours of basketball. You do skills drills, and then your team plays, and right. You have an all-star game and all that stuff. And I did great, but more so there was a coach, his name was Wayne Jones, that was like, hey, have you ever thought about going to college, in the U.S.? And I was like, no, not really. I play pro, this, that, the other. But he was a great, great guy, and he kept in touch with me. So when we came back, I was definitely on a high from that. I'm playing really good, but also this is the thing about anything criminal is like, you fall into it. It can crescendo really quickly, so that year, it was just a lot of stuff that happened, like I was seeing that, I was getting basically from a lawyer, my conversation was on the phone tapped, interrogated jail, like, all of these things from getting shot at, you name it. And it's like, I had the aha moment. Actually, my basketball coach was like, hey, like, sat me down, said, I know what you're doing. It's like, where do you think this leads? And he created a lot of let's just put it like an awareness, It's like,
did you not listen to Notorious B.I.G.'s 10 Crack Commandments?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I will lyrically, you let me know anything from the late 80s to the early 2000s. I will rap it for you word for word.
I love it. So, I might jump in with you. We'll save that for the end.
Yes. Hell yeah. But it was he did, and I do actually accredit to, I say that my life wouldn't be the way that it is, where I don't know if it would be at all if it wasn't for basketball. Basketball and the coaching in basketball was definitely the first savior of my life with the direction I was going. And that's where, that year, and the thing was Wayne kept communicating with me. And so now all of a sudden he's like, hey, you should come to, he lived in Denver. He said, come to Denver, we'll train for a couple of weeks and we'll do 2 EIBCs back to back. And as everything was starting to crazy, I legitimately was like, okay, like, fuck it. What do I have to lose? Right. So I go there. Now I don't understand.
Kind of got you out of Dodge, right?
It certainly did. But the thing is, I didn't understand like the college recruiting system or any of that stuff. Right. Like, and so it was, I think I got there in beginning of July because EIBC is like mid-July to end of July / beginning of August. I don't know when, there's no more scholarships at that point in time, so it is what it is. But I'd go to Denver, train every day for hours, get super prepped, and I do great. Like in EIBC, I do great. And I have a bunch of schools, Delaware State, Quinnipiac, Western Michigan, all D1s. Not super high level D1s, but then mid level D1s. Actually, even San Francisco. Talked to San Francisco too. But some of those schools were like, "We love you." Like, hey, listen, you walk on year 1, you'll get a scholarship year 2. And I'm like, okay, well, what does walking on mean? Well, you got to pay for your first year. Like, all right, cool. All right, how much? All these schools are like $48,000 to $50,000+ a year, which for me, it's like this is so out of reach. I remember even talking to my pops, and like before I even got to mid sentence, it was like, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So that was out of the window, but there was cause this was a new year. So Wayne wasn't my coach for the team. There was another guy and he said, look, Luka, I used to play and be a coach at a school in upstate New York. It's a D2 JUCO. And he's like, you can't get a full ride cause we just, they don't have the money for it, but they can cover some things. And you'll play and you're really good, man. You're good. You'll play like year 1. If you play like this, he's like, you won't be coming off the bench, right? And I got back let's see, like I think I remember these things kind of pretty clearly, but I came back like right at the beginning of August, went to the embassy and was like, here's all the paperwork, fucking let's do it. So it was a pretty fast decision, but it made sense to me because I was like, look, I get to play basketball, I can still go pro. I get to do school and I get away from, I would say the negative things that were kind of really pulling me down at that point in time. Yeah. And I ended up getting all the paperwork. My first day actually in the US was supposed to be, my flight was on September 11th, 2001. So I think 20 minutes after the towers got hit is when our flight was meant to land. We're in the air, little yellow lights start blinking.
And you were flying into New York, right?
Yeah, I'm flying into New York. So we flew around in the air until we kind of ran out of fuel and then landed in Nova Scotia. And I stayed in the military camp for a week before taking a bus down to the city when it was still like you could, smell the fumes, military, the whole. And then I walked through the city with all the bags and go to Greyhound and then took a bus upstate to Binghamton, which is where my JUCO was. So then, then I did 2 years there. I got a full ride in Southern Virginia for Virginia Intermont. From there, I went to, I played my first pro year was actually in Ukraine, believe it or not, in Yuzhny. which was about 45-minute drive from Odessa. And you know, I mean, like I said, I played for about 3.5 years pro ball, and I was always like this. You know, there's always this underlying story of strength training and performance. You know, even in school, like I did business management, but I was like, you know, you do business management because it's the thing you think that you should do, right? But all my electives were pretty much, you know, I ended up getting a minor in exercise science and kinesiology because I was so geeked out. I mean, I was writing fucking programs for, you know, strength and conditioning programs for our team. Because everybody was like, wow, you know all this stuff. I do. And it's like literally, I'll go back to my dorm room right now and fucking study this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
From the age, I read Charlie Francis' Speech Rap when I was like 15, 16. I mean, you know, I was just geeked out about the performance side because, like I said, you know, when I was 13, 14, when mom opened a gym, I got so into it. And because it helped me change, I was so bought into this thing, right? And so as I'm even, like I said, I'm in Ukraine, you know, I'm training harder than everybody. I'm in the weight room extra. You know, I'm talking to the strength coach about little tweaks that I can do to, you know, improve my vertical, to not get tired. And funny enough, in the Ukraine, you know, that strength and conditioning coach, I remember even him saying, Luka, you want to take extra pill? I said, nah, man, I'm not going to do that because I don't know, you guys didn't fucking give me that and then test me 2 days later. I'm not going to do that. But
like
they did have some, I'm telling you, they did have some accelerated recovery strategy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I bet.
And then so
we're not talking about Shilajit.
Oh yeah. No, it was. I do a pretty good like Russian accent, and I should say did get upset at that Ukrainian accent. But it's you know, so I was there. I went from there. I played in Slovenia for a couple of years. Actually played in the NBA Summer Pro League, the last one in Southern California as well. And you know, in the last year that I played pro ball, you know, kind of like officially, I started training people, and it was it's actually one of our friends was doing kettlebell training. This is like way back. You know, I've been doing kettlebell training for like 20 years plus. Mm-hmm. You know, Pavel was one of my kind of first mentors. Actually, I did the first RKC in Denmark in Europe, which was I think in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. But he, you know, my brother was like, "Hey, listen, you want to go do this session with these kettlebells? They're like these metal balls." And you know, I'm super into training, so I'm like, of course. And we went. You know, Gregor trained us, and like we got demolished. And I was very fit. You know, I was like, so you know, we're doing swings and snatches and offset goblet squats and all types of shit. And I'm just like, dude, Turkish get-ups, and you know, I'm sore for like 4 days afterwards. And I want to do more. You know, I didn't want to be conquered by anything. So I'm like, let's start training. You know, so we started training, started learning, you know, really got into the Russian Kettlebell Challenge, that initial RKC. For anybody that remembers back in the day when it was still, you know, RKC was at its kind of like prime and peak, and got really into that. And basically my brother was training because he used to play soccer and pro soccer. And his time was just like, because he had a translating agency at one time. He's like, look, can you take over training like 3-4 guys? You know, they're some of them are soccer guys, some are not, but like, I just can't train them anymore. And I did like a session with them, you know, and they went to my brother and said, listen, we don't know what the hell, but like your brother's got a knack for this. Like, this is like, he's so good at the coaching and, you know, getting us to do more and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. You know, I actually really, really enjoyed it, and kind of that spurred, you know, I started training people. And I started, you know, I basically would either train folks outside with kettlebells. We go to this park, Tivoli, which is like this awesome, like massive outdoor area with, you know, hills. And you got like, you know, in Slovenia it's cool because you have these trails and it's like there's pull-up bars and logs that you can lift. So it's really kind of, again, that whole physical education side of things. So we'd go there, we'd roll up with the car, kettlebells, kegs, ropes. You know, we'd have all types of stuff and just train outside. And then I also trained at the gym. And when I was training at that gym, you know, I was honestly training obviously for myself, but I was doing stuff that, you know, mobility, obviously everybody today knows, like you do, I don't know, Spider-Man lunge with a rotation and this, that, and like everybody understands. Like you did that 20 years ago, you know, people are looking at you funny. You do a tie sit, you know, but then I was lifting heavy and doing different shit. And people were like, yo, what are you doing? So, you know, I'd explain to them because I was so geeky about training, you know, I could, you know, and they're like, man, would you want to train me? So I picked up a couple people. And part of it too is because my last year, like pro sports is interesting, right? Like you sign a contract doesn't mean you'll make the money that you signed a contract for. And I've experienced the highs and lows of pro sports, where like that year I didn't get paid for like 7 months. And because the team is like, they don't have the money, the sponsors aren't getting it. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and they keep kind of lying to you, so you keep playing. So I'm doing 2-a-days. I get up in the morning, I practice, then I coach people. I'm making some money there, not a lot. Then I go back and practice. Then I play pro games on Saturdays, not getting paid. So, but the thing is, what I really got from it too is that when I was coaching people, I was very fulfilled, right? I felt really, really good. And I tell this story a lot because I honestly, there was I was really trying to level out the karma in my life. My teens, I did a lot of bad shit, and I mean, we could dive into it, but it's like bad shit. And I, coaching for me was like, I would help people, and I'd give back, and it made me feel so good. It was very fulfilling. And I tell people today, it's like, when you give, the gift is not just for them, it's for you, and I still to this day feel like that. But that was when I had that spark, because like, I was barely making any money. People barely paying me anything when I was coaching. But man, after every session, I was energized. I felt so good about myself as far as who I am and what I'm doing. It was kind of tilting that karma scale, at least I was like, man, if I can work, for the rest of my life and tilt it to neutral. And I'd say that I've tilted past that now, but that was my mentality. And so in that gym, it was called Sokol. I started getting some clients. And then what I did is they had a magazine that they published, because that was the kind of like the bigger gym franchise in kind of our city and even some other cities. And they had a pretty big publication magazine. And I ended up just submitting an article about back pain, because I actually had struggled with back pain even when I was younger, my whole life. And this back pain article blew up. People were coming to the gym, like, hey, you're the guy who wrote the back pain article. Oh, I want you to train me. It was a little overwhelming, because I'm like, I'm practicing ball and lifting weights, and it's 4 to 5 hours a day. You know what I mean? And then in between, I'm coaching people. And now all of a sudden we're training some people out in the park. I'm training people in the gym, and like I have a list of people that want to train with me. I can't take them on. And I mean, look, good problems, but it's not like I was making a bunch of money at that point in time. And you got to understand, like at that point in time in Slovenia, there's no personal trainer that you can look to and go like, man, look at him, like super famous, like they're making really good money. It doesn't exist. You're either a strength coach and you make okay, get by money, or, you're a personal trainer. That's your side hustle, right? Yep. That's the only thing that existed then. And you have, big box gyms, they weren't as big, but they were like membership gyms, not coaching gyms that didn't exist. Yeah. And it got to a point where I went to my brother, because the group in the park went from 3 people, 4 people, 8 people, to then 12 to 15 to 18, till we had to split it. And then we'd have people walking in the park and seeing these groups and going like, what the fuck is this? And my pitch would always be like, hey, you can jump in on Friday and try it out, and we grew it so much that, people were getting results. People were loving the camaraderie. A lot of the folks that I was coaching were either, wanted to feel like an athlete again. And so that was, so not only from a standpoint of like the way they look and perform, but the way that the locker room feel, right? Like the high fives with the people, you know what I mean? Like the like struggling through something together and feeling like somebody's got their back. Like that was a critical point. I went to my brother. I said, listen, man, like we got something here. Like there's something here. I'm telling you, like we got to open a gym. And my brother was like, no. And at that point in time, I was also engaged to be married. So, and, very likely going to move to the US, because this was my college sweetheart. And, so he's like, I don't know. And I ended up taking, I didn't have a ton of money, but I invested in this consultant. And this consultant was back then, he was like, when Thomas Plummer was at the peak in the fitness industry, he was kind of like that for the industry in Slovenia. And he's like, oh man, I love your enthusiasm. Like your energy is crazy, but it's like, it won't work. There is no coaching gyms, and there's a reason for it. The reason for it is there's not a market for it. And that's why there is none, and I was like, well, I fucking disagree. I burned my money because I'm still fucking doing it. So, and I kept bugging my brother, and it's eventually, he kind of gave in, because I will go through head through a wall. Anybody who knows me is like, I got some problems, you know, like if I get something in my head, it's like, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to stop. And, you know, we bought about, back then it was like 3,000 euros worth of kettlebells, barbells, some pull-up bars. And we got this 470 square foot room. I've shared it on my Instagram. Like I got some of these pictures, even though back then, you know, you didn't have like phones that took pics and videos and all that shit was, but we still got some pictures of when we drove around the van training, that little room. And in a short amount of time, that room grew, you know, meaning grew, like our classes got full, at least at the busy times. And we moved from there to a 2,200 square foot space. And at that point in time is when I moved to the US, because I had to kind of make a choice. You know, it was a lot more feasible for me to live in the US than for back then my wife to come to Slovenia. And that was basically that was the start of our gym there, which has been now around for almost 16 years. I think it's going to go on 16 years. But I had to, you know, when I came here, I start from scratch, and start from scratch for me was like, you know, LA Fitness, went from LA Fitness to this gym called Vision Quest, helped them build a personal training program, boot camps. They ended up buying 14, 15 gyms and selling for 39 million to LA Fitness. And in that time frame, while I was still working there, actually, I started my garage gym, you know, so in Seattle, in Renton, I've now had a gym, it's going on 14 years. So that's the really short of the story, because that garage gym went to a bigger gym, and then I ended up buying a building about 5 years ago, and kind of ripping it apart and making it the Vigor Ground that is today. It's a 12,000 square foot building. We have smoothie bar. It's called Fit Bar Cafe. We have high-def physical therapy inside. We have a recovery area. We have actually the national championship rugby team, Seattle Seawolves, that I also coached, and their strength and conditioning coach. That's all inside. We have a nail salon. We have a hair salon. I'm leasing out. I'm not running any of that. But it's, you know, it's come a really, really long way, man. And it's just evolved. It's evolved. And I believe, you know, it's funny, the name Vigor Ground, you know, people always ask me like, why Vigor Ground? Sounds cool, but there's a deeper meaning to it too. Is, you know, if you look up a vigor in a dictionary, it says a number of different things. One is energy, right? It's force. But the thing is like this personal power, right? But it's also the basically the growth of all physical and psychological things, right? If you dig deeper into it. So to me, Vigor Ground was the place where you come to build your personal power, energy, and improve physically and mentally, right? And what our philosophy is that, like, once, because it's a way of life, right? That when people leave, they live that life, and Vigor Ground is wherever you walk. But that was you know, how we came up with that. And it was part of the, you know, the interesting thing is that the transformation of Vigor is my personal transformation. You know, I went from, you know, if somebody met me in my teenager years, like every teacher that I had was like, this guy's not going to make it. Shit, my mom was like, you know, this guy's not going to make it. And, you know, I believe in change so much because I changed so much. And that's why I'm so driven and so purposeful about, you know, what we do. Because I am you know, and I always tell that, like, be the product of the product, right? Like, do you live this? You know, do you your life, I feel like, is it's like if there was a camera on you 24/7, you didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
And that's who you are. You know, I don't give a shit what you put on IG. I don't care, you know, what cool quotes you say. You are, like, if you turn things off, like, who would, you know, if you have a son and they watch the video of you, but you don't know that the video is being played, that you're being filmed, that's who you are. You know, like, do you open the door for the old lady? Do you help somebody out here? Do you go and train when you don't feel like it? Do you do the work even though fucking you don't want to? Do you go above and beyond even though you're not paid for it? You know, I can keep going on and on and on. All these things that we like to say, are we living those things?
And what are you saying? What are you saying? You know, that isn't even vocalized. What's the conversation happening between your ears?
Correct. Because again, you know, like, you see this a lot where I mean, we live in an era, and, like, look, I'm not against social. I think social media is so powerful. I was, you know, just, you know, tell my girl and show my girl sometimes, look at these messages I get from all over the world. It's mind boggling. It's humbling. It's you know, but it energizes me even more because there's no shit. Like, for instance, I got a message and it's like, hey, like, I'm this coach from Nigeria. Like, there's this whole like village that does your workouts. And I'm like, what? This is fucking insane. You know what I mean? Like, like stuff like that. It's nuts. So you can use it for good. You can use it to really influence and persuade in a positive direction. So I love it, but it's also smoke and mirrors. It's also the little man in the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, right? Like what's real and what's not, because it's a lot of perception. So I always say, like, man, like, even when it comes to trust of people, but also, if you're a business, and like, for instance, everybody's a business essentially, right? Even if you work for someone, it doesn't matter. You're you Inc., right? And if you're you Inc., does your audio match your video, right? Does what you say and do on here, right? Is it real? Is it gonna carry over when people meet you? It's like, oh man, that the audio matches the video. Unfortunately, a lot of times it doesn't. But when it does, that's the value of your value goes up tremendously, and it builds trust. And to go back to this, right? I would say, okay, if you're the CEO of You Inc., okay, and you're going out to ask, for investors, like, or, what would your shareholders think, right? Would they invest in you, right? And that's the thing is, but like the reality is, if you're the CEO of You Inc., who has to invest? You're the number one asset. You got to invest in you. You know what I mean? Like, you are by far the number one asset. I just put this post up the other day because I was thinking about this, and I had a conversation with a friend, that's like heavy in the stocks and whatever, and I'm like, man, listen, like, the thing I never hear you say is like, when we talk about training, you're like, no. But training is investing in you, right? We talk about like this idea you have for business, and it's like, man, you're not putting time, money, and energy into it. So you're literally, with your actions, saying that you trust companies that you don't know the CEO of, the workers of, anything, to be more valuable than yourself, which was sad to me. You know what I mean? Like, when I presented it to him that way, he kind of had this like little aha moment. I'm like, my number one stock is me, and then it's my team and my business, and obviously the people I care and love about. And I believe in, I bought a bunch of real estate, obviously for the company and other stuff, and I believe in stocks, but it's definitely going to not be my number one investment. Number one investment is always going to be me and the people around me, right? And the thing is, if you say that, but then I look at your bank account, where your money's going, and that's not telling me that, then that's not true. That's not what you're committed to. Right? And sometimes that's harsh, right? I was just in Scottsdale speaking in a big event, and I talk about this watch and this wallet, philosophy, right? Like, where's your watch and your wallet going? Like, where's your time going, right? If I look at your schedule, what is on your schedule? And in your wallet, like, where's your money going? Like, those are things you're committed to. Man, I really want to spend time with it. Okay, let me see your calendar. I'm committed to getting fit this year. Okay, cool. Let me see your schedule. When you have a coach, when you're meeting with people to go train, where's your prepping for nutrition, right? Well, I'll get it done when it's, no, see, that's the thing. It's not on there. You're not dedicating time, energy to it. Yeah. Now let me see your bank account. Like, man, I see you having drinks 3 nights a week at a bar. Each time is $55, but you can't go train. Again, listen, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to be like, this is what you're saying, and this is what it's showing, and it's not matching up. You know what I mean? And until you don't match those things up and do it consistently for a long period of time, you're not going to achieve the things that you want to. But what's cool, again, is like, I look at my own life, right? If back then I'd be like, yeah, I want to do this. My shit was not matching. Where my time and energy was going was not matching, who I wanted to become, right? And because of that, it was also, one of those things where I'd always, whether it was me getting in trouble or people around me were getting hurt, like, I don't know why this is happening. Well, I put myself in these situations. Of course, this is going to be happening, right? And then when I removed myself from those environments, that shit wasn't happening anymore, right? So again, the hardest thing in life is obviously being honest with yourself, being aware and looking at yourself in the mirror and like doing the hard shit. It's one of the biggest signs in our gym is like, do the work. No matter what, like, you always got to do the work. I don't care. You can't get away from it. You just can't get away from it.
100%. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. So like, I mean, you had this insane situation growing up where you were basically like in an Olympic combine as a kid with these world-class athletes from different disciplines. And I mean, your focus at the time was like, you wanted to jump higher and run faster and that sort of thing. Like if you were to sort of deconstruct like one or two of the most powerful lessons that you took away from, let's say, the gymnast or the Olympic powerlifter that you mentioned, that you keep with you today, that you teach other people today, that you see a lot of folks on this journey not doing, what comes to mind?
Let me try to, all right, I'll distill it. I'll try to distill it in kind of like maybe 3 steps, right? But like one is showing up. You know, one of the things that you see with elite, right, with elites in any field, is that like they do stuff regardless. I mean, you know, a buddy of mine, he was a Super Bowl champion. Tim Magali mentioned this to me one day, and I said, man, I wrote it down. I've forever remembered it, and I talk about it. You know, what is commitment, right? Commitment is doing what you said you would do when you said you'd do it. That's one point. That's one part of commitment. Part 2 is doing what is required. Okay. So let's talk about that one a little bit, like doing what is required. So if you right now you lift 100 pounds on a trap bar deadlift, but you tell me I want to lift 600 pounds, okay, on a trap bar deadlift. Okay, dope. I love that. You know, that's gonna be a journey, but like, man, you can do it. Okay, I'm gonna lift 1 time a week. Listen, that's not enough. It's not what's required. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm gonna build $1 million business, but I want to work 5-6 hours a day. That's not what's required, right? Like there's just a reality of what it requires to achieve something, right? So commitment is doing what you said you do when you said you do it, doing what's required. And this one's powerful. Number 3, doing it despite of emotions, feelings, moods, and thoughts, right? So, oh man, I don't feel like doing this today. Fucking do it anyways, right? And it goes for anything. Like, oh, I don't feel like being the kindest to my partner today. Well, it's the right thing to do, right? Because you remember, you're committed. Okay, so no matter what, I don't feel like eating this healthy food today, you know, but it's like I just want to eat shit. Okay, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. So one thing that elite athletes have is they show up because they're committed. Okay. Mm-hmm. Number 2, and this is what I found about around the best of the best, is curiosity. Meaning that to get better, they can't look. I'll say this: that high level athletes have a confidence around them, and we'll talk about what I feel like builds confidence. But they're curious. You know, it's interesting because the best of the best that I've been around, you know, even though they're at such an elite level, they'd be like, I don't know. I would say something, and they're like, "What did you say? How did you do that? Let me see." Right? They're because they're trying to find every way to improve. Mm-hmm. Right? In the moment that they think that they know it all, or they're not curious, is the moment that everything starts falling apart. Right? Because now your brain is like, well, I know this, so that means that I don't need to seek it out. So curiosity was no one. Number 3 is focus. Man, it's like one of the things that I realized, and like also too, you know, being around, I even remember one time going to Brigitte. So she was the lady that won the silver in the 110-meter hurdles in Barcelona. You know, she was sitting there cross-legged against the wall with her eyes closed. And I waited, so I wasn't a shit. But like when she got out of it, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind me asking what you were doing?" You know, and she was just like, "Oh, I was visualizing. I was running through in my head what my training session is going to be like." You know, and I was just like, what do you mean? Like, she was like, I saw it before it happened. I was sitting there calmly, and like, I went through my warm up in my head. I went through the first drill that we'll do, how I'm going to do it, how fast I'm punching, the rhythm. And it's like for like 15 minutes, like I'm going through that thing in my head. Right. And then like I come out of it, and then I'm going to make that happen, but I've already saw it. Right. And so, you know, she talked to me about visualization and playing things in her head. And then later on, I would, you know, also read books. And I remember Psycho-Cybernetics was actually one of the first books that I read that started, you know, the theater of the mind. which when I read it, it was funny because I was like, oh man, this is what Brigitte was talking about. And I started doing that, right? Where you're playing the future in your head, whether it was, for ball, it would be like, I would see how the ball leaves my fingertips, where my elbow is, slow motion, swish through the net and like play it over and over and over again. Like, these things are helpful. I mean, it's proven by science too, right? It was like how your neurons, essentially like it's real in your head, right? So it's also patterning. But that's one of the things that I found is they were so focused. In a training session, not to say that they wouldn't have fun, but when it was time to do the thing, whatever the thing was, is 10% away, acceleration, sled sprints, bounding, whatever. I mean, their focus was insane, right? It was just like, the Serengeti and like the cheetah going after its prey. I mean, that's the only way that I can, put it this way: the highest level ones. That's the one of the things that I saw and learned. And it's interesting now that I'm in the world. I mean, I still train. I have this philosophy of being an athlete for life. But focus is such a superpower because, we live in such a distracted world that if you can be zoned in for work for 3 hours, you're going to get more done than somebody in 3 days. Because again. Interestingly enough, I promise you, I don't have any affiliation with Cal Newport in his books, but he's got another book called Deep Work, and I just remembered it, as I'm talking about this, that as soon as you get distracted, it takes you about 20 minutes to get back to like really locked in, and now we have our phones around us, stuff, and we put ourselves in environments where, like I said, there's distractions left and right. So how do you even get work done, right? You're like, oh, I was doing work, I'm busy. But like in 8 hours, you got done, what somebody could be exceptionally focused could get done in an hour.
Yep.
Okay. So, but this was a thing, like I said, that, I found with the highest level athletes. And I would say number 4, I think this one's really important, because, being around people that spent a lot of time, like Brigitte was a person that like spent a lot of time before she got that Olympic medal, right? I mean, we're talking about years and years and years. And another great example was a friend of mine is Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, one of the, pound for pound greatest fighters of all time. I actually trained with him. Crazy interesting story, but like, his wife came to one of my boot camps when I was at Vision Quest. She did this transformation challenge. And because she came to that, that's where they met, because AMC was also training out of Vision Quest. And I trained with those fighters and train those fighters sometimes. And he was still, amateur 5-0. I'd go to, his fights here around Washington before he went pro. And obviously, now he's, one of the greatest. He's probably going to retire not far from now with one championship. But, you talk about a journey. Okay. And remember, this is a guy that didn't quit his job at the warehouse until his 7th title defense in the UFC.
Wow.
I go back and look at that. It's insane. So he get up, train, go to warehouse, work all day, train again. And he defended 6 UFC titles before he was like, all right, maybe I should take this. Maybe I don't have to, you know what I mean? Wow. But the lesson there between those 2 examples amongst a lot of others, I've been fortunate enough to be around incredible athletes. One of my good friends, Goran Dragic, he plays for the Brooklyn Nets. He's been in the league now for 13 years. Same thing. It always takes, it's this quote, right? People overestimate what they can do in the short term, but they drastically underestimate what they can do in the long term, right? And that goes hand in hand with the showing up part. But oh, you think you're gonna grow this thing in a year, but it's really gonna take 5. Okay. Like you want to transform in 3 months, but it's gonna take you 12 or 18. Okay. Mm-hmm. But in that time, you can do a lot more than you believe is possible. Right. And this mentality can really, really wreak havoc because, people will bust their butt. They're like, oh, I'm 8 weeks in, I'm 10 weeks in. Fuck, I'm not rich yet. I'm not shredded to pieces. I'm not healthy. I'm off, and then kind of repeat that cycle rather than looking in the future and going like, hey, look, for the next 3 years, I'm going to just build this. And then you get focused and you get curious and you show up and you stay committed, man, and then amazing shit happens, right? So those were definitely some of the lessons. I'm sure that there's more of them, but it's like, this whole this idea of mastery. Like I saw this post of on Instagram about Instagram posts and how you build a following and things like that, right? And I mean, I've my social media channels have grown quite significantly. I think they have a ton of ways to go, but even YouTube, like YouTube has gotten pretty big. IG or Facebook, Vigor, has an insane engagement and views and things like that, right? And there's all these, there's courses and stuff like that on how to do it. And like, look, I have nothing against that, right? But somebody put a post up and was like, no, like what you do is you create great content every day, right? Valuable things, like useful things that are real, right? And you post it consistently for the people, right? To solve people's problems. So either, I always say building a brand is 4 things. It's like make people laugh, make people cry, make people feel, and then give them value in advance. And that 4th one I think is the most important one, right? Just giving people value in advance. And if you do that, long enough, and because what you're essentially doing is you're practicing, right? I'm practicing how to make a better post. I'm practicing how to get really consistent with creating useful content for my people, right? My audiences. And it's like, just do that for a long time. And then you won't need to have this, course that goes like, oh, posted at 7. People are like, what time do you post? I'm like, fucking whenever I can. Sometimes I'm taking a dump and putting an IG post up. You know what I mean? Like I got a crazy busy, like my days are wild. They're so back to back. It's absurd. Like I'm like, oh, I got, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm going to put up a post or 2, I'm going to, as I'm coaching people, I'm shooting videos, right? Like, and the point being is, but like, if you go back, you'll see my consistency over a 3 to 5 year span is like pretty absurd. Right. And that's the magic. It's just you practice, practice. Like you want to think mastery, right? You want to be a masterful coach, which is why I get, this is my belief. Like I think online is fucking awesome. I think you can affect so many people and you can, your reach is so much bigger. When it comes to coaching in the strength and conditioning field and the fitness field, when I hear people go like, they've been training people for a year or 2 and they're like, I'm going online. Unless you continue to train some people offline, I think you're not going to be a good coach. And it's like, if anybody's listening to this and you feel triggered, that's fine. Come after me. We can have a conversation. But you cannot, if you're not coaching, 3 to 5 years aggressively, because it's practice. And like me coaching somebody face to face gives me a whole world of more insight from body language to be able to connect better, all of those different things, which then, you can better coach online because then you really know people, and you've had this wide base of people that you've coached in hopefully, right? Because I always say is to be a great specialist, you first have to be a great generalist. And I see this a lot, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to do a little bit, but then I'm like, you're trying to cut through the mastery part of it, right? And it's like, we had a seminar this weekend. We had another seminar the weekend before, and then we had another seminar 4 weeks before that. And then we have another seminar coming up in 3 weeks with Pat Davidson. And another, you see what I'm saying? Like we have 11, 12 seminars this year at Vigor. We've had like over 100, we have more continuing education in our gym than any other gym in the country. And that's, I'm not being arrogant here. I'm like, you can come test it, it's factual. I have data, but all to point out that whole curiosity part. I've been doing this thing for a long time, right? I really know my stuff, but I feel like I don't know anything, right? Yeah. And that's what makes me continue to like be curious and figure stuff out and bring new people in and go, oh, I like that angle. All right, how did you get that, right? But then guess what? I'm using it the next day with my pro athletes, with my groups, teaching the team, right? It's like it's a constant refinement, feedback. It's like I always say there's 4 steps: learn, apply, reflect, course correct, right? Learn, apply, reflect, course correct. I see a lot of people either learning stuff, but then they're not, applying it. And if they do apply it, they don't reflect. Did it work? Did it not work? What worked well? What can I do better? And that's why, that's why coaching is so effective. If I see somebody daily, right, I can create a feedback loop that makes them better. If I tell you to do something and then we don't talk for a month, and you come back like I did it, and I'm like, oh, but man, that thing you're not doing right. That means that for 30 days you were doing it wrong, right? And you're patterning the wrong way. So, these are the types of things that, like, why I think coaching is so invaluable. And I don't care what space it is in, if it's fitness, nutrition, it's it's business, relationships, whatever it may be, right? Because the way I've always looked at coaching is like, you are here, it's kind of like when you're in a mall, you are here, and you're here is we figure it out. If it's training, it's like, where's your strength, your power, your weight, your body fat percentage, depending on what you want to change. And then wherever you want to go, that's your Everest, right? And a coach is a Sherpa. Like, I'm going to take you to your Everest. I'm not going to do it for you. Can't do it, right? I'll guide you. I can't even drag you, right? Coaching is, majority of the time, it's guiding, right? It's like, I have a map because I've done it before and I've taken a lot of people there. So I'm going to guide you to your Everest. Now, sometimes I'm going to push you, right? Challenge you and push you. Sometimes, man, you fall down. I might have to pull you up, okay? But majority of the time, it's guiding you. And so, to get great at that, you have to remember, we talked about this with the first Cal Newport book, deliberate practice, right? You have to build career capital, and whether the 10,000 hour rule is true from, Malcolm Gladwell or not, it's irrelevant, right? If it's, I think some people can get really skilled at something in less than 10,000 hours, but that part is irrelevant though, right? Is it 5,000, 6,000? Because 10,000 hours is pretty much about, 10 years, right? Now, if you're a psycho like me, it's 4 years, you know what I mean? But either way, like Which
ties into that focus.
Yes, absolutely. But it's like, but I'm at like 55, 60,000 hours now, right? Like, I've calculated it between my own coaching with elite level coaches and my own training and me training others, we're in that, 57 to 60,000 hour or more range. I mean, I've stopped counting, but do I stop trying to get better? No, like I'm trying to get better for myself so I can be better for my clients and my team. And I think that's the whole idea, right? Is this what Simon Sinek says, is this infinite game, right? Our lives are not like a basketball game where, it's the quarter and at the end, like I win the game. It's like there's a score and I win, and then what? Okay, you wait for the next game. It's one continuous thing. And like I said, there's no scoreboard, and again, like Tony Robbins talks about, like, happiness is connected to progress. And I could give you all the things that you want. Here's your 10 million, here's your body, here's this, that, the other. And then for years, you're not getting better, and you'd find yourself being depressed, right? This is who we are intrinsically, right? There's 3 things that drive us intrinsically, as Sebastian Junger talks about in Tribes, and that is competence, contribution, and connection. And competence is that. It's like, am I getting better? Am I mastering something? Am I improving at it? And when we get better at things, we are more fulfilled, even if we don't get more money for it, right? It's like people will get, like, if they improve their skill set, they feel more fulfilled. Contribution is the thing that I talked about at the beginning, which is what helped me get into coaching, because I felt like contributing fulfilled me. It was intrinsically motivating me, right? I was giving stuff, and what I was getting is this fulfillment of, like, joy of helping, which, if anybody's ever done it, it's why we do so much charity work at Vigor, which I do so much personally, so much charity work, is because, again, it's so fulfilling, right? And number 3 is connection, which I think possibly might be the most important part, which is, we don't have each other. We're not human beings. And again, you can have whatever you want. If you don't have people around you, you're going to be miserable. And Vivek Murphy, the former general, which I don't agree with all the things that he says these days, but he wrote a book called Together, and it was about loneliness. Very phenomenal book, right? But it's like one of the number one predictors of mortality is loneliness, right? It's more, put it this way, if we are lonely, and loneliness is deep, it doesn't mean that we don't have people around us. We can be lonely with others around us, right? Is that it's more unhealthy than smoking. I don't know how many cigarettes per day, diabetes, right? Now, unfortunately, those things really kind of go hand in hand, that when people are unhealthy, they're more lonely. And you can, if you want to dive deeper into the topic, again, the book is great. There's more studies and data in there than you could, go through. But I mean, you don't need to read the book if you're not surrounded by connection, by love, by caring, that you're more unhealthy. And you're also more viable to do things like eat more unhealthy, like not treat yourself well, not exercise, smoke, drink alcohol. These are all things that have been proven, right? Which is why, I believe the fastest way to change is to change environments. That's it. It's the fastest trigger, because environments trigger our behaviors. And sometimes it's tough to unravel deep traumas, right? And I've had like a lot of stuff happen in my life, and many decisions I made that led me to bad places. And I've done therapy, and I'm a big believer in therapy, and I've gone to groups, men's groups that have significantly helped me out. And so I talk about this and I coach this a lot, because there's still a stigma around it, unfortunately. But again, you know what I mean? Like environments, like I know that when I changed my environments, like things shifted quickly, because we're such social creatures that we want to adhere to the standards of the tribe, right? So you take, for instance, Vigor Ground, the gym, right? When people join the gym and they start exercising there, everybody around them is working towards a better, kind of like a better you. They're trying to better themselves. So they're working on eating better, improving their lifestyle habits. They're working hard, right? And so that is the standard of our tribe. So the people that come in there now will start adhering to those standards. Okay. And that's why it's so powerful, because if you're surrounding yourself with people that, when you look at them, they do not represent the future that you want to be. Right. And again, this is another one of those hard things to face sometimes. Right. But that's going to be more difficult, right? It's kind of like gravity. It's like much more, it's going to be much more difficult to escape. And even Adam Grant talks about this in I think in Originals. It's that, really successful people, everybody thinks that they just have so much more willpower, right? And there is something to willpower. I'm not going to say that there isn't, okay? But the most successful people create better constraints, right? They don't have to use as much willpower to do the things that makes them successful, okay? And I'll use examples that are really simple and to understand, right? But like, you're always snacking when you get stressed out, but you always have snacks and ice cream at home. So it's really easily accessible, right? Now, if you didn't have them at home, you might still get stressed out and want a snack, but now you got to go to the fucking store, and the store is 20 minutes away, which means it's 20 minutes to the store, 10 minutes at the store, 20 minutes back, 50 minutes. And all of a sudden you're like, fuck it, I'll have this fruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for real, like it's, there's James Clear talks about this great example in Atomic Habits where somebody was like, all right, I'm going to learn to play the guitar. So I'm going to play the guitar every day for the next 30 days and see how I improve. And he put the guitar in his room upstairs. Okay. So it took him about 35 seconds to go to his room. And I might be a little bit off on the numbers, but in the next 30 days, he only played the guitar like something like 7 or 9 times. Right. And he was like, man, I understand. The guitar's right there in my room. It's like, all right, I'm going to put the guitar on my couch. So that way he literally would sit down and it'd be right there next to him. And then the next month he played 27 out of 30 days. Right. So he changed his environment. And even something is that you feel like is meaningless, just walking up the stairs for 30 seconds, might shift you from doing, like I said, 7 versus 27. Mm-hmm. Right. Just like the thing is like, hey, what if you go to sleep in, your training shorts, or you put them right by, like when you step out of the bed, you literally step on your training gear and your training shoes, right? The likelihood of you going for a walk, run, training session is higher. Okay. This is the power of our environments, right? Do I meet with my friend at the bar for a drink, or do I meet with my friend at the squash court, go for a hike, right? Like wherever we meet, that's what we're going to do. So again, like you analyzing your environments and going like, what are the things that I'm surrounding myself with? Who am I surrounding myself with? It's infinitely powerful. And I get it. I understand that like you can't affect everything, right? And this is kind of like where I come back to, I got a big Buddha tattooed on my arm. Like, all right, what can we control? If you can't control it, don't worry about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can control it, don't worry about it. Do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is practice. When I talk about these mindsets, like this is practice. I gotta practice this mindset. And it's, I mean, you'd laugh because right now you can't see it, but I'm surrounded by books, and I'm writing a book currently, but I read voraciously, and reading helped me brainwash me in a positive direction, right? I was practicing thinking differently. And like I said, anything that you want to change is going to take practice, but why not make it easier on yourself and make an environment that allows you to be more successful rather than being more challenging, right?
For sure.
It's as simple. I mean, I say simple doesn't mean easy, but it is as simple as that. And it requires us to be very honest. And like I said at the beginning, right? Like, hardest thing in life is to be honest about ourselves. Right. And, it was, so this is for anybody that judges that we'll all do. Right. But, one of my good friends and mentors back in the day, Dax Moy, said, first tell the truth about yourself to yourself, then tell the truth about yourself to others. Only then tell the truth about others to themselves. Right. And yeah, what do? Oh, hey, listen, man, you should really do blah, 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 blah. Right. Mm-hmm. But you're never telling the truth about yourself to yourself. Okay. We're really quick to judge others and give advice. And I say one of the greatest forms of sedation, and, we usually sedate when we avoid things, drink alcohol, social media, porn, food, gambling, sex. I mean, there's a lot of things that you sedate yourself with, right? But one that people don't think about that's actually one of the most prevalent ones is judgment. It's advice, right? We tell everybody else what they should be doing. And it's like, they said, what is true wisdom? True wisdom is taking your own advice, right? And so that whole tell the truth to yourself about yourself, it's what it is. It's like, hey, listen, you should really start, working out and doing this, that, the other. Okay, cool. Well, what in your life should you start doing? Right. I had these realizations the hard way because, I would be so into health and fitness. Like, why are you not taking care of your health and fitness? And then in some other area of your life, I would be a complete shithead doing dumb stuff. Right. So, there's, to me, and, there's physical weightlifting, there's mental weightlifting, there's emotional weightlifting. And it's really easy to comprehend the physical one because it's like, oh, well, I go to the gym and I work out and I lift weights and I get stronger. Okay, but where in your day and your week are you working on your mental weightlifting? Right. And that might be exercises. There's all types of exercises. I mean, I can give examples, but there's, obviously reading books that help you reframe your mind. That's exercise mentally too. And then there's also emotional, right? Emotional is everything from having crucial conversation to sitting with your feelings to, understanding that motion creates emotion. But again, do you deliberately practice, physical, mental, emotional weightlifting? And if you do, over time, people that haven't seen you for a while will be like, whoa, what happened to you? Who are you? How are you so different? And that's been my life. And again, I feel like Vigor Ground is in everything that I do, all my businesses, a representation of a transformation that I continue to work on myself, right? Because it's not like the work is done. I'm far, far, far from perfect. I never will be. There's tons of stuff to work on, but I continue to work on it, and I continue to work on all these three elements here that I just shared,
Absolutely. No, this is awesome. It was kind of funny when I was growing up. I mean, I made money and paid for college and my expenses by carrying golf bags. I was a caddy at one of the country clubs here. And there was a bunch of guys that were traders at the Chicago Board of Trade. And they did Michael Jordan's basketball camp. That's $25,000. You get to play with Jordan, this and that. So they became friends and Jordan started playing with them. And I was their guy. So anytime Jordan and them would play, it was they're playing $1,000 or more bucks a hole. And I was out before caddying and my job was don't lose a fucking ball. You know what I mean? Like get out there, mark it with a towel, I'm running my ass off. But it was like the most exciting thing because I grew up watching Jordan play and never missed a game when they were, three-peating twice in a row and all that. And I would watch him get in these guys' heads, basically. And he was so relaxed. His demeanor never changed. He never got emotional, but he talked so much shit over the course of those 18 holes. I'd start watching these other dudes start flying off the handle. They'd start spraying golf balls and this and that because he had this level of emotional mastery and he knew the things to say in order to get under the skin of his competition. And it was like, at face value, you'd be like, man, Jordan's kind of a dick, but he knew exactly what needed to be done to win and how to plant seeds within his competition where they were just self-destruct. And because he knew that they didn't have the same degree of emotional mastery and emotional regulation that he had. Never saw him get upset. Never saw him throw a club. Everybody else he played with, I sure did. You know?
I feel like that was, one of the great, obviously his skill and his physicality and always working on himself like that. But I still believe, Michael Jordan's greatest superpower was his mindset, and interestingly enough, as you say that, I'm a big fan of stoicism, and like especially during really hard time, pandemics, things like that. Like I was reading actually, man, I got it right here. Right, I still read this every day because it's so powerful. I got different, I got Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, that book's awesome. The Daily Stoic.
It's great, but
yeah, phenomenal.
All the stuff, all Marcus Aurelius meditations and everything else. But because why? Like Stoics were it's not that they weren't emotional, but they were detaching their emotions from their decisions, right? Because when have you ever made a powerful decision when you're very emotional? Never, right? Like, you have to create some space from that decision, from that emotion, and then combine it with logic to make, what you feel is best. But when you're angry, when you're jealous, when you're lonely, when you're hungry, right? You don't make good decisions. That's why you have, in behavior change therapy and even with nutrition, we teach this, the HALT strategy. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Right? Because a lot of times it's like, well, I ate an hour ago. You're probably not hungry, right? You might be stressed out, right? You're angry. Your boss just pissed you off, so now all of a sudden you're crushing M&Ms, right? Like, but are you really hungry? No, you're not, right? But then because it's like that's a pacifier, right? It's a way to sedate. I'm sedating and make myself feel better. And, these are like I said, there's a lot, I'm talking about a lot of different things here, but it's the thing is recognize, what is something in your life that is essentially veering you off course, and if you, number one, awareness precedes change, right? So if you're not aware, you can't change it. You don't know what you don't know. So that's why awareness is so powerful. And I'd probably even go back to, when you said about athletes, I'd say that was one of the things is awareness. Right? Being like elite athletes become aware of their mistakes, their weaknesses, and then they work on them, right? Like we have to, do the same thing where, if you're always interrupting people, they talk and you're always interrupting them. Okay. Like number one, awareness. Damn, like I am always interrupting people. All right. Let me give myself a rule. So this is practice. I'm always going to wait 3 seconds after somebody stops talking before I speak. Right. And that's difficult. I'm speaking from experience because I would interrupt people all the time. Right. And a friend of mine brought it up to me. And then when he brought it up to me, next time I was like, oh shit, I do this. And then I started practicing it. Right. And it was not a quick thing. I had to really imagine somebody stops talking. For me, 3 seconds was eternity. Right.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. And then I go, and I would do it long enough to where I became calmer, not feeling like I have to, let me tell you this, right? And again, awareness, same thing. You might become aware, be like, man, every time I try to calm down on drinking wine, but now wine has become synonymous with comfort for me. And all of a sudden now I'm drinking 3 glasses a night every night, 7 days a week. Right. And I'm also saying, well, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. My sleep isn't that great. Again, awareness first. Right. But then that awareness, you're like, all right, listen, I'm going to just drink white wine 2 nights a week. That compound effect is going to change. It's going to change your life dramatically.
Yeah.
And it might seem like a small thing, but all of that stuff compounds, right? So again, when I talk about environments, look, if you surround yourself with the right people that care about you, they will compassionately go like, hey, listen, I noticed something. You do this and it's not good, right? Mm-hmm. Love and care about you. That's why I'm bringing this up. And then you go, shit, okay, maybe I am, right? I mean, sometimes you'll get defensive first, but this is what I'm saying. Like, how do we create these, I would say, guardrails that help us stay on the path to the person we want to become, right?
For sure.
And people and places and environments are such a big part of that. So I'm like, be aware of that and then start creating an environment that helps you become as successful as you can be in whatever area you want to be in.
Yeah. When I was in California with Jay Ferrugia at one of his events, and there was a guy there that was real quiet in the way that he talked. And Jay goes, let me just break this down for you. If someone says, what? You fucked up. You're talking too quiet. You're not communicating clearly and powerfully. And so I was like, man, what a great trigger. Now, when this guy hears someone say what, he's like, I fucked up. I need to talk louder. I need to be more powerful and project.
Turn it up.
You know what I mean? Turn it all up, right? So it can also be having certain triggers like that, that you don't necessarily need someone else to point out if you're aware enough to recognize them and put some of those things in place, which kind of brings me to this. Like, what do you believe are what's the mentality and the energetics of a world-class coach or leader? Because you hear a lot about helping people find their why, and they're driven by their why. And then, Tony Robbins talks about good teachers, good leaders teach commitment. But there's also this art to it where you got to know when to push someone. You got to know when to challenge someone. And you also need to know when to keep it, where it's more focused on positive reinforcement. So I guess what I'm asking you is like, what do you really feel are like the core overarching mentalities and energetics of a world-class coach or leader?
Look, I mean, the reality is this, right? Like if I look at I hate looking at averages because nobody's really average. It's a great, I forgot what the book was, but it's basically the book talks about like when we calculate average, nobody's average. We just find this medium from everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But majority of the people, look, most people don't really talk to themselves good in their mind, right? Like most people are not positively, like they don't have a positive focus. So part of our mission is like, I know like for vast majority of people that I see every day, I'm working on building their self-esteem up, right? I'm building their confidence up. And, the way that you do that is like, I've explained this analogy because I absolutely love it. It's like the bank account, right? You have, your self-esteem is when you do something that you said you do. Not to me, just you said that you do. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I'm going to go for a workout, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you get up and you're like, you snooze it and you're like, oh, fuck it, I'll do it tomorrow. Bam. Right there, that is that's a debit in your bank account, your self-esteem bank account, right? You do it again, boom, another debit. So now all of a sudden, you're bankrupt in self-esteem, right? Now you stop believing in yourself. Right? Let alone if somebody else tells you suck, you believe them, right? But like you don't even believe yourself that you'll do something. Mm-hmm. Now, if I build enough credits into my self-esteem bank account, hey, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Boom, I do it. Next day, I don't feel like doing it. Guess what? I still do it. Credit. So now I have so many credits that like when you go, Anthony, you're like, Luka, you suck at coaching. I mean, it doesn't even faze me. Mm-hmm. I know I don't. My credits in my self-esteem bank account are high enough that you can't budget, right? So the majority of the time, like positive reinforcement, shining a light on the positive works, but not being corny about it, not bullshitting. I think there's sometimes an exaggeration when people will just tell you everything is good, which I fucking think is not a good idea, right? And athletes and people don't want to hear that.
To honor all is to honor none.
It's to honor none, correct? But what I will say is just like, I am going to find shining lights. Hey, listen, if I'm videoing something stuff, like maybe they don't even lift more weight. I'm like, look at this first rep. What do you see? Oh, like my upper back's rounding pretty bad, right? Okay. What do you see in the second video? Oh, my back's flat. Yeah. Great job. See, like you locked in your form. What I shine a light on something positive. Not only that, it's going to reinforce them doing that posture, doing that form, right? So that's working. Okay. And there is, I'm going to blank on this, the actual name, but there's been so many studies done on this, on the 5-to-1 ratio. They actually researched it through couples over 9 years, a 9-year study where basically they were doing interviews and following couples and this, that, the other on their positive to negative talk. Right. And basically they I think they were 97% or 94% precise on who's going to get divorced. Right. And it was the ratios of positive to negative talk. And 5-to-1 was that magic one where it was the best. And then they started researching that in companies so that teams and organizations that had that 5-to-1 ratio, did better than ones that were like 1-to-1. So 1 positive to 1 negative. Right. So, I mean, one, we got to look at science of this. Number two, do I think that it has to be 5-to-1? No, but I am going to find opportunities in the day to shine a light on the great things that people are doing. Now, I'm still going to tell them like, hey, stop. I don't want you lifting like that. Okay. You're doing this, you're doing that. It's not good. Okay. I'm not going to bullshit around it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, imagine being a coach. It's like, no, stop. Fuck. You're not doing this right again. They're doing that in their head all day long. Mm-hmm. Right. They're doing that in their head all day long. Now, there is an individuality to it. Like this is where the science meets the art. Okay. And coaching is science and art. Right. And this is why I say you got to put in the reps. Like I've coached so many people so often. It's absurd that you start seeing these things and you go like, look, this athlete maybe needs a little push. We just launched a program with Kaisa. Kaisa does really well. I'm like, I don't really know if you can do that. What did you say? Yeah, I don't know if you can do that, man. That last rep kind of looked, and she'll fucking go do it. Right. Because I challenged her. And this is where the individuality comes in. But guess what? When she does it, I'm still going to go like, hey, way to push yourself on that. Great job on pushing through. Right? I'm going to still give that positivity, but I'm going to find these triggers that maybe challenge them to do more. Okay. So that's where the art comes. Now, let me share what I believe is the formula for confidence. Okay. It's competence plus courage. Right? That's how you build confidence. So if I continue to if I go and study for the next month every day for 3 hours on a topic, am I going to be more confident about that topic? Fucking you best believe I will. Mm-hmm. Right? I put in a lot of hours to build my competence up. Right? But there's another part of it, and that's courage. Do I, even though I'm afraid, right? Because even if you've done all this work and they're like, all right, I'm going to step on stage in front of 1,000 people, man, you might have built up the competence and that's built your confidence up, but you got to step on stage and you got to do that hard thing, right? So there's even a book that says do one hard thing every day, right? Do something you're afraid of every day. And I think that, guess what that is? Practice. Can start small, right? Fear exposure, right? Like I'm deathly afraid of, not me personally, but like, people be like, I'm deathly afraid of spiders. I'm like, okay, cool. Hold that spider for a second, right? Mm-hmm. Exposure, right? Mm-hmm. You can't, how do you overcome a fear if you're always running away from it? It's impossible, right? So you have to have the courage to step in, lean in to these challenging things. Now you get those two. So imagine that formula going like, okay, so every day competence, if you work on something that you want to get better at, that deliberate practice, that mastery. And then the second part, often try to do things that you're afraid of. And it can be small. That's the other thing too. I think people get like, oh my God, do I have to jump out of a plane? No, like, maybe go like, hey, you have a tough time talking to people today, start a conversation with 3 people, right? Literally like track that. Mm-hmm. Hey, dope sneakers. Where'd you get those, man? I'm a sneakerhead too. You're a Safeway. Somebody's got some dope shoes, right? Conversation. You're at Starbucks. Hey, buy somebody coffee behind you. Hey, listen, I bought you a coffee. I'm just trying to do one good deed every day, so I hope you enjoy it. Start a conversation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now that might be that's very difficult for some people. Okay. Accepting a compliment, difficult for some people. All types of things that you can work on every single day and practice that cover that courage part, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be like all of a sudden fucking I'm, going live on stage and I've never done XYZ, right? Shoot a video. Like people are definitely afraid of putting themselves out on social media. Man, do a live. Mm-hmm. Do some stories and talking to the camera, right? And so if you create that competence and that courage, those two together will build confidence, man. And like, And if you add that commitment, which is we talked about like showing up and commitment of building self-esteem because you're doing what you said you do, man, that's the formula right there.
I love it. And I want to kind of land this plane because you've been super generous with your time. But there's one thing that I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably experiencing that you might be able to help with. And I realize that this is something that we could probably do a whole episode on, but there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with back pain, and you know a lot about how to fix back pain. So if you were to kind of give Luka's condensed recommendations to our listeners who might be living in pain right now and might have been in pain for a long time, what would your advice be?
Back pain is interesting. It's multifactorial, so I think that's the first thing that people have to understand. There's no one size fits all. Like something that works for some people won't work for others. But let's kind of look at some things that we know that work, or put it this way, that I'm always, my belief has always been, like I said, I've experienced back pain my whole life. 14 years ago, I had a horrible back injury that, for many people, they would have opted in for surgery. I had L5, S1 herniation, L4, L3 bulge on a femoral nerve, so I had femoral entrapment. Like, my leg didn't work pretty much, and even when like at a certain point in time, the PTs were like, oh, we might, this might be a time where you go get cut open. And I said, no, and I rehabbed it pretty much 100%. I have to be smart about it. But even like I was just saying, like this week I hit some lifetime PRs, and I say that to give hope, because hope is a powerful thing, but here's the kicker. Let's look at the things that, people usually experience, right? Because I'm going to go down the list. Most people, like your lumbar spine, your back, right, is meant to be a more stable joint. Okay. And when we get really tight in our hips and we get a weak core and a tight upper back, right, from the phone and all day being in a hunch position, so our upper back becomes stiff, our core is weak, and our hips become stiff. Now it makes our low back move a lot, right? So now if I'm throwing, punching, picking stuff up, I'm flexing, extending, and rotating my lumbar spine. And it was not meant to do that, right? And the best analogy I can give you is like a credit card, right? When I get a credit card, I can start bending it left and right, and it's not going to break. But then 1001, boop, it pops, right? So we want to create mobile hips, okay? Mobile meaning that you can control them. You can have more range of motion, but also not just have the range of motion. Like don't just think flexibility. Mobility means that I can control that range of motion, right? With strength, okay? And so doing hip mobility drills is certainly a beneficial thing. And it's very, I'm very like, okay, look, if it hurts, you stop, okay? Now, if it's uncomfortable, like it's like an uncomfortable stretch or something like that, it's a 3, even a 4, sometimes even a 5, that's okay, right? But if it's like, ow, pain, don't do it, right? It's simple, okay? Because this is, there'll be folks always on social media, because I share so much stuff on my YouTube. On my YouTube, you can go and put up Luka Hocevar, low back pain, hip mobility, and you'll get a lot of videos that will help you out, like a lot. There's I have like 45-minute videos talking through what I do if I ever tweak my back to get back to training. I mean, it's hours and hours of content. But awesome. The point being, people always like, should I do this? And I'm like, I don't know. But I'll always say, like, these are safe things. So when you're trying them, if something's like not feeling right, or like you're in pain, stop. Okay. But if you're uncomfortable, that might be just fine, because again, hey, when you're stretching something out or you're really tight in your quads and you do a stretch, it's going to be uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. So one, absolutely work on your hip mobility, okay? And again, rather than diving crazy deep into it, there's tons of resources that you can go
to YouTube.
Number two, we talked about like, having a strong core, and again, how do you like not as many, I'm not saying that crunches are, going to kill you, but you want to do, our core is meant to prevent movement. So anti-rotation, anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-lateral flexion, side planks, TRX fallouts, Palloff presses, stir the pot on a Swiss ball, walkouts, chops, right? Like I could go on and on and on. ab wheel rollouts, farmer's walks, dead bugs, straight leg raises with band resistance. Again, tons of this stuff on online that you can find from me. I'm also very, if you message me, I'll answer. So getting mobile and strong hips, right? Not just, like I said, mobile and strong hips, strong core, and then upper back, so getting out of like this flexion and creating extension and rotation in our upper back so that our lower back doesn't have to do as much work, right? So those are really, really important things. And then it's going to be like, getting stronger in your hamstrings, your glutes, and even your low back, right? Creating that strength endurance in your low back. Like the thing that people, and I get it, I understand how this goes, right? When you're like, my back hurts, automatically there's a threat to the system, right? Pain is a threat to the system. So it's going to downregulate everything. It's going to downregulate your strength, your range of motion, all these different things. But the sooner that you can get, one of the worst things that you can do when you have back pain is to not do anything. Right? I said the healthiest spine is a moving spine, right? Or should I say just a moving body? Movement is therapeutic in itself. Okay, so even just like when your back hurts, walking is great, right? Actually, going up for a walk is great. Now, look, there's an acute part to it. Like if you blow your back out, the next day or two might be horrible and you might not be able to walk much. But like that's when you go see, a chiropractor or a manual therapist, even better. Excellent physical therapist is usually my recommendation. But then like you want to be moving, you want to be doing stuff. Right. It's definitely somewhere where I would get a coach and a professional to help you out with it, because trust me, it's an absolute game changer, because getting strong will prevent you from getting back pain. Right. And like I posted a video of a girl in our gym that's, 119 pounds, mom of two, and she deadlifted 350. And I posted it and it went viral, and it's got millions of views. And there's so many people talking shit, like she's going to, break her back, her spine's going to blow up. And the interesting thing is that like when she came to us, she had back problems, right? And she was overweight and she was weak. And like now, she's like, going to turn 36. She's had 2 kids. She's super lean, super healthy. And like I said, she can deadlift a ton and she has no pain, right? Because she has good hip mobility, good core strength, good thoracic mobility. She trains, so she's strong. She has strong glutes and hamstrings and good low back endurance, right? And like, it's funny, but because the people that are saying that, and like, I'm not judging. I'm not, here to talk shit. It's unfortunate. It's sad, because it's like you're gonna hurt yourself. But then I'll actually have conversations with some in a non-aggressive way, and they say that they're hurting, and I'm like, think about what you're saying, right? Like you're sitting there judging this person that's training and lifting, and you're in back pain, telling them that they're going to be in back pain, but they're actually not in back pain, right? So maybe it's what they're doing, because and like on my videos, wait till you're 40. I'm like, I'm about to be 41. What are you talking about? Like I fucking had the destroyed back when I was, 29, 28. And it's like, listen, like, I mean, you got to train smart, but this is where, like this is not a pitch. I don't even have a low back product, which would be a great link right here. But the point being is, these are all like, we've coached thousands of people. Like, I mean, in real time, we get nine different physical therapy clinics that refer to us. We have a PT clinic in house, and the people that refer, like Dr. Stuart McGill sends people in Seattle to us, right? We've had him out for seminars and all that good stuff. And it's like, because we make sure that we do the right stuff. We're not going to, anything that's like, I don't give a shit about which lift and how much you can lift. I don't care about straight barbell deadlift. That's not going to help you get where you want to go, right? Those are just tools, right? But the principles that I talked about, like that's the stuff that you need, right? You need to have mobile and hips in control. You need to have core stiffness that matches your hip stiffness, right? Because if my hips are tighter than my core, as soon as I get down into any type of positions, I'm going to break at the back, meaning break. I'm going to flex, right? And I'm going to be more stress, more shear, more rotational forces on the lumbar spine, which we don't want. So it's just a sequencing part. But I try to get people to, a lot of times we'll send folks here, do these 4 or 5 drills. Yeah, I literally just posted an IG video. It's just like, It was a low back. Yeah. Thank you. Low back pain, hip, low back pain, hip, mobility kind of pre-warm up. And it'll be stuff like that. And obviously there's multiple ones that you can do, but that's one I use and one I love and we do with people. And, folks that have been in, afterwards, they're like, Jesus, like I feel so much better. I don't even feel my back. Now it may come back and back. This is what I'm saying. Back pain is very weird. It's like, there's so much somatic stuff with it, meaning you could have, an injury from 10 years ago and you have tightness in the back and pain because pain lives in the brain, right? Structurally, they could do an MRI and say like, look, your tissues are fine, your discs are fine. But in your mind, you're like, oh, pain, right? Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Like I could actually talk about this for a long, long time. But because for me, it's like I studied the back before I was doing Dr. Stuart McGill stuff. In like 2002 or some shit like that. And, and then I studied. And then when I got hurt, man, then I literally went to everything all around the world. I did everything that you can ever imagine when it comes to rehab, like legit DNS, PRI, you name it, MAT, trigger point therapy. I did the courses. I would show up at things where they're like, you're a trainer, this is for PTs, and I'd finagle just to fuck. I'm like, don't worry, I won't touch anybody. And they'd be like, all right, fuck it, learn, because I was so into it to help myself, but I became really good at helping others, kind of fix their own low back pain. But I'm not, I'm not trying to be arrogant enough to go like, oh, there's a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do that and you're good. We work with some of the best people. I still see our PTs once a week or once every 2 weeks. And they work on me, and it's like, kind of pre-active too. Cause sometimes I do get like some nervy stuff going on. And I got to work on it. Right. But again, this is one of those, it's not a one size fits all, but there are principles, right? And some of the principles that I shared, if you do them, like they're safe and it'll help you get better. And again, like I'll, even off of this conversation, I feel like I got to do another long YouTube video about it.
Heck yeah. No, this has been fantastic, Luka. Thank you. And guys, if you have gotten any value from this, if you've enjoyed this conversation, share it on social media, send it to friends, family members, people you work with. Luka, I really appreciate you hanging out and being so generous with your wisdom and time and energy. And this has been a lot of fun.
For me too, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, man. And
where's the best way for people to connect with you? You've got, I'll kind of let you guide them to where they should go to stay up to date on all the cool things that you're working on, and maybe mention what you got going on with this book.
Yeah, I'll throw in. It's going to be a little bit before it comes out, but so it's number one, like our gym, it's vigorgroundfitness.com. That's obviously if you're in Renton, the Seattle area, that's where you can find out everything, about the gym, sign up for a trial, all that good stuff. Like usually I share most of like everything that's happening on social media, which is, best to follow my IG account, which is at Luka Hocevar, LukaHocevar. That's the best bet. And then if there's something going, I'll say it and go here, go through stories, go to this link. YouTube is where I put all my videos. There's 1,400 videos. You could probably spend the next 10 years watching the videos if you wanted to. Some of them are from way back then, which I'm like, but I promise you, like I've heard that people go like, hey, I would absolutely pay a lot of money to watch this video, and you just gave it to us for free. And like I have program design videos that are hour long, low back videos that are 45 minutes long explaining stuff. So there is a lot of value there. If you just go on YouTube and put in Luka Hocevar, it'll pop up. And then I do, kind of for 9+ years now, going on 10 actually now, I've done business coaching for the fitness space, coaches, gym owners, wellness, big companies bring me out for consulting now too. But I really am passionate about working with, gym owners that are like myself, that are so, I still coach because I love coaching, right? But they want to build a successful business, a profitable business, a meaningful business, and also make money that they invest in and create security, right? Essentially same thing as my journey. And I do that through our company called Yo Grow Your Gym. And for that, you can go check out yogrowyourgym.com/results. The name in itself, if you don't get what we do, I don't know, and it came from, just so you know, it came from Yo MTV Raps, because I fucking used to love that. So we kind of even got the logo that looks like that. So, but yeah, we help, we've got, like I said, I do stuff like Fly for Lifetime Fitness and do workshops for them. But our most of our gym owners are like, they have, 60, 70 clients to hundreds of clients, and they're trying to either go multi-location or grow or cut down the time that they're working and make more money, hybrid business model. Like, we do it all, right? Like, as far as teaching that. And that's what the book is going to be about. And I'm actually, one of my really good friends is Sean Hyson, the former editor of Men's Fitness. He's with, he's the head of all the content for On It now. And so he's helping me write this book, and it's going to be a book for the fitness industry, for coaches, and how to be successful at long-term, like not the gimmicky bullshit stuff. I teach what I do, that's it. Anything that I'm talking about, I do it. Like, I'm coaching in real time. I run, I have a team of 7. Our facility in Slovenia has a team of 15. We've been around for 16 years. The amount of, between those 2 facilities, we have coached like 11,000 people now. We train national teams. I'm a S&C coach for not only a high school team, but a pro sports team. And then we have, individual elite athletes to come through it. You name it, we've done it, and continue to do it. Right. And I own buildings, and like I said, I've invested in startups and blah, 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 blah. Not to, like I said, look, it's not to impress anybody. It's just to impress upon you that, like, this is what I do day in and day out, 24/7. It's almost, it's sometimes a problem, because I'm like Kobe. I'm fucking obsessed with this shit. And, the book is, I want to make it a very practical book, not like a geeky, like, look at all the stuff I know, but it's like, do this shit and it'll work. And even 10 years from now, if you pick it up, it's going to be based on principles. It's just going to have examples of real world stuff, whether it's social media posts, how to do hand raiser campaign, referral campaigns, understanding these different principles of like coaching, customer experience, and culture. Or on the front end, there's content, communication, conversion/cash. There's all these different 9 C's to build a championship business. And whether you're a single coach or you're a business owner or a gym owner, so I'm pouring myself into that. I know it's probably going to take, the rest of the year to get done, cleaned up, all that good stuff. And my goal is to launch it early next year as a hardcover book, and be the best book in the industry for people to build a career, a meaningful career that actually, makes you money. Because at the end of the day, I feel like what we do is the greatest job in the world. It's a vocation. It's not a job, but, to say I'm a coach, you should be honored. And a lot of people don't, I think, see it that way. And it's like, man, we should also, the great ones, I'm saying the people that really do the work, the things that we're talking about, they should be rewarded for it, and they should have great careers. And I hate fucking seeing great coaches leave the industry because they don't make enough money, and like, I want to be part of changing that, from the inside out. And again, like, I'm not a person that's like, I left the industry and like, I'm here, man. I'm here to, forever. This is the best industry there is. And we affect people more than any other profession that I know, so I'm very, very obviously passionate about it. It's not just the caffeine. I'm just so fired up about this stuff. So, you guys will be seeing more of that as I share along the year.
Awesome, brother. Keep us posted on that. If you want to come back for a round 2 when the book's dropping, let me know. I'd welcome you with open arms.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Definitely will make it happen.
All right. Thanks so much, Luka.
Pleasure.